I've tried basically every diet there is. I've been vegan, vegetarian, I've done the Atkins diet, the paleo diet, the Mediterranean diet, and the carnivore diet. And everything that I've tried, every nutrition plan, there is no doubt in my mind that carnivore is the healthiest, that carnivore is the absolute best. Now, you've joined this video because you wanted to learn my reasoning as to why I decided to be carnivore, and I'm going to take you through my exact thought pathway. But first of all, I think it's really important to note that most people don't know anything about nutrition. I went to med school in the UK, and I can tell you that I had maybe 2 hours on nutrition when I went to med school. And if you speak to any doctor, dentist, anyone with a medical degree or dental degree, you'll find that we're not actually taught about nutrition. And I find that absolutely crazy, because how does it make sense that what you're putting into your body every single day doesn't have a massive impact on how you feel? I was doing what I thought was a well-balanced diet. So I had my fats, I've had my protein, my vegetables and carbs, but I could tell that I wasn't in peak condition. You know, I had certain conditions like migraines. You know, I was carrying extra weight, even though I exercised very regularly, I wasn't feeling my best. And that's what started my journey into trying to understand nutrition in further detail to find out what's the best thing. And I came across carnivore. Now, there are 3 main categories that really helped me decide that carnivore was the right thing for me, but also, as it turns out, right for basically every human being in the world. And I know that's a really bold claim. So if you stay with me, I'll try and get you a little bit closer in your journey in understanding why that's the case. Now, the first thing that drew me to carnivore is obviously the anecdotal evidence. Now, we all have spoken to carnivores before, and they all claim crazy things, you know, huge amounts of weight loss, muscle gain, better energy, better facial symmetry, no cavities, reversing degenerative diseases such as diabetes, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, even mental health conditions like depression and anxiety massively improve for these patients who go carnivore. So that piqued my interest, and I can honestly say, even though I've met a lot of vegans or vegetarians who've gone carnivore, I've never met a carnivore who's gone vegan, because the way you feel when you're carnivore, it's just, there's nothing like it. And to give you a bit of reference about myself, just before I went carnivore, I was actually a full-on vegetarian. I was vegetarian for multiple different reasons, for ethical reasons and environmental reasons. Although I've discovered fairly recently in my journey that being vegetarian, and I know this sounds crazy, isn't actually as ethical or as environmentally friendly as you might think. But that is a topic for another talk, which I'll definitely do at some point. But I was vegetarian, and when I discovered that I wanted to move into the carnivore space, I didn't want to do it right away. If I just suddenly started eating lots of meat after not eating any meat whatsoever, then my body would be sent into overdrive. It'd be wondering where all of my vegetables and where my carbs are. Microbiome in my gut will become very confused, and it will start digesting its own inner lining rather than digesting the carbs that it's used to. So I did a slow transition, and I eventually became carnivore. But ultimately, one of the first reasons I became carnivore was the anecdotal evidence. I just spoke to way too many people who said that it was the best decision that they ever made, so I had to try it. So that was number 1. Number 2 is understanding population studies. Now, there is a fantastic book that I've read that's been recommended to me by multiple people. It's Weston A. Price's Nutrition and Physical Degeneration. Now, it's a very long book. It's quite technical. It's mainly about this dentist in the 1920s who traveled the world and looked at different indigenous populations, essentially people who had very select diets. And it would be all sorts of ranges. It would be people who would only eat meat, people who would only eat fish, people who would only eat vegetables, and a mix of all of them as well. The findings from this book were astounding. And I can't go through the entire book with you today, but what I would highly recommend is either reading the book yourself, or even better, just getting an AI system like ChatGPT to summarize everything that the book said. But ultimately, what they found was that populations like the Maasai tribe, for example, a tribe in Africa, they would only eat meat and dairy, but high quality meat and dairy, not stuff that's been heavily processed. They would rear the animals themselves, milk them themselves, and they would have very high quality meat and dairy. Yes, granted, they would also have the animal's blood, which I'm not necessarily recommending. But when you focus on the fact that their diet almost entirely consisted of meat and dairy, the Maasai tribe showed incredible attributes. So they were much taller than the average population. They had much higher muscle density, much better bone density. Physically, they were warriors. They were very strong. But also, they had higher IQs, they had 0 dental cavities, they had perfect dental arch formation, they had perfect facial symmetry, they had essentially no incidence of degenerative diseases like diabetes or high blood pressure or Parkinson's, Alzheimer's or mental health conditions. They were peak condition. Now, you can't deny that nutrition had to have something to do with it. And what convinced me even further is that when one of these tribe members would move to another town where trade was available, so where they had westernized foods, so things like highly processed sugars and marmalades and processed food, cereals and such, when that individual who supposedly would have very good genetics, let's say, when they would go over to these towns which had access to the Western diet, their health would plummet and their children's health would plummet. So their kids would get cavities, they'd have health conditions, they'd have overcrowding of the teeth. And we all know how our teeth look as a direct representation of how healthy we are as the human race or as an individual. So you would see these people's health conditions or health just absolutely plummet. And that really convinced me that, okay, there's something here. These people who are eating meat and dairy, they're the healthiest that they can possibly be. And when you see people, even that you might know, who've been eating lots of meat when they're younger and they weren't eating as much sugar or carbs or vegetables, they tend to be taller, healthier, smarter, and much better facial features. So that was the second thing that really convinced me. The third thing has to be biochemistry. Now, the amazing thing about biochemistry is that it's observable, it's fact, it's science. It can't be disputed. It doesn't matter if I say it or if someone else says it, it's fact no matter what. And the fact is that biochemistry proves without a doubt that carnivore is the best way to proceed. Now, I won't go into too much detail today. I will do another video on this at some point, but I'm going to tell you the basic concepts. We have two different digestive systems or processes where we can extract energy. We can either get energy from carbs and sugar and vegetables, and all of these as eventually break down into disaccharides and monosaccharides. They all break down into sugar. Or we can digest the fats that we eat, which then produce energy, or the end currency of energy, which is ATP. The fat pathway is known as fat oxidation, and the sugar pathway is known as glycolysis. Now, both these pathways ultimately produce ATP, but one of them is far more efficient, and I'll let you guess which one that is. Because of this, we have cleaner energy. So when we go down the fat oxidation pathway, we produce things like ketones. Now, I know you've all heard about ketones before. They're supposedly this wonderful byproduct of our digestive system and metabolism, which produces cleaner energy and also helps with weight loss and also helps with increasing brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which means that we think better, our cognition improves. So it has a whole host of benefits. I won't go into too much detail from now because I just think it's so complicated. I need to show you all sorts of diagrams. We need to go into things like the Krebs cycle, but it's fascinating stuff. And the combination of all of these things, so the anecdotal evidence, the population studies, the biochemistry, that all made me really want to try carnivore. And as I said before, I didn't jump right into it, I slowly transitioned. But honestly, the differences I found were astounding. And I'm gonna make another video where I go through every single benefit that I have found through turning carnivore. But just to summarize very quickly, better energy, better mental clarity, weight loss, muscle gain, performing better in the gym, better and clearer skin, better hair quality, and the knowledge that I am reducing my chances of getting degenerative diseases to almost zero. So the chances of me, touch wood, of getting things like cancer or degenerative diseases like diabetes, dementia, they are much, much lower because of the nutrition plan that I'm following. And as a result of this, everyone I speak to, I bring this up. I bring up the fact that there is this system or this diet that we can follow, and it's pretty simple, that will make you feel better than you've ever done before. and everyone who actually listens to me and has the ability to look past the dogma. Because let's face it, to the average person, I sound pretty crazy right now to say, oh, you know, I don't eat vegetables, I don't eat fiber, I only eat meat and dairy, and I feel the best I ever have in my entire life. But most people, it's just too much for them to grasp. And there's a whole host of reasons why we've been led to believe that the carnivore diet is not good. You know, there's been incorrect studies that have been funded to fill the pockets of big industries like Kellogg's and sugar companies. There's a lot behind this, and hopefully together we can go through it and I can help you take one step further into your carnivore journey. I hope this video has been helpful. If you have any questions, feel free to put it in the comments below. If you are carnivore yourself or you're thinking about becoming carnivore, like this post or like this video so that more people get this video so they can become convinced that this is the path to move forward where they can just feel the best that they've ever had in their entire lives. Again, I hope this video has been helpful and I can't wait to see you on the next episode.